For those who just came in, my name is Christy Ellis. I'm excited to be here teaching you session 17, all about offers. And please chime in whenever you want. I'll be reading the chat as much as I can, but ideally jump in with a question, unmute yourself, and just kind of raise your hand and definitely be able to get started. So, oh, look, more people coming in. All righty. Okay, well, let's get started. So a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be going over what it's like to get an offer put together, right? Because if you haven't done it, it seems to be a lot of work and people aren't sure where to get started. And it can be a little bit overwhelming. I remember when I first became an agent, I was excited and nervous when I got a first client, but I was completely nervous when I wasn't getting clients. So I understand all the anxiety that can go around this and making sure you're getting things right. The great thing about KW, of course, is that you always have these great people around you who are always happy to help you through anything, coach you. Back in the day, it used to be, everybody had a trade secret for real estate, and I think we all understand now there's really no trade secrets. Just do the right things for the right people, and all works out just fine. All right, so if you've probably heard a few times through our teachings and everything, this is our belief system, right? The win-win or no deal, integrity, do the right thing, customers always come first. And this is really important too because how we win here in business is also how we win in life, which is these are great rules to live by. And if you've ever done prosperity training or coaching, a lot of these are in that same realm. So it's great to know these, to have these kind of with you when you think about things, especially when you become impatient with some of our clients, because that happens too. So today we're going to be talking about our offer. So it's great you've gotten this far. Out there showing you're working hard. Here in Phoenix, it gets to be 120 in the summer. So we're sweating a lot in the summertime. So when we get to the point where we're writing an offer, we're like super excited about it because that means we can sit in the air conditioning for a few minutes. So, um, all right. I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade, not manipulate a person or persons into a win-win situation, right? Like I like this analogy with a rope. Do you get anywhere if you try and push a rope? No, you get if you pull a rope. So when you're pulling someone into you, when you're pulling people towards you, you do much better that way. And it is a win-win. This is one of the most competitive, collaborative industries I think we'll ever find. As a real estate agent, it's in our best interest to get along with the other party, right? Like we're not really trying to see who makes the killing here. And I get sometimes our clients will see it that way, but for us as agents, our goal is to make sure that everyone has that same goal at the end of the day, which is close on the deal, get your clients the house they want, either or sell the house your clients want to sell. All right, so let's talk about the offer process. Now, the offer process is kind of like this loop, right? We started a place and it can go lots of different ways. And honestly, after yesterday, I learned it could also go backwards. I really haven't had go backwards before, but it can do that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about uh, how to get started on the offer, how to go through the offer, and then second section is going to be how to negotiate the offer. So we're going to have a lot of information. I want to get through as much as possible. I also don't want to like fire hose you, so please feel free to stop and ask questions. Happy to answer anything. So let's talk about what do you, and if I'm happy to, like I said, if anyone wants to participate, please feel free. Um, what do you think that at this point, your client's seeing this great house, they want to make an offer. What kind of emotions do you think they're going through right now? Like, what do you think they're thinking? How are they feeling? What are they saying? Any thoughts or questions? No? Okay. Well, there's lots of different things going on depending on the client. This is why I think I love this job so much. Every deal is so different. And even if you've worked with the same clients in the past, if you're working with them at a different time in life, things may be different for them too, right? So they're not always the same people. And hopefully at this point, they're excited, maybe a little bit nervous, and they're sharing with you all the things that make this house the one they want. Sometimes they don't like to put all their cards on the table for you, even though that you're their agent. Sometimes you kind of have to ask a lot of questions to kind of figure out where they're going, right? So first thing we're going to do is make sure our clients are, we understand everything they want in this offer. Like how much do they want this house? Because that's going to mean a lot to you when you make the offer. We're making sure that we're staying in control, even though they can get very excited or emotional. We let them do that with us. We just want to make sure when we're bringing this information over to the buyer's agent, we're the ones who are completely relaxed, and we have, or sorry, the seller's agent, and we have the ability to be that non-emotional person who they hired, right? That's our job. So the first thing we want to do is, our buyer is going to make an offer. So there's a couple of things that can happen. We send the offer in, right? Usually we're emailing it. Ideally, you're also calling the agent ahead of time. You've had some conversations with the other agents, mostly about the property, not about maybe either how excited your client is or how much they want the house. Again, our job is going to be to negotiate. So we sort of have to be careful of how much we share. That's why I'm not a big fan of giving too much buyer feedback to the seller's agent, because our fiduciary responsibility is to our buyer. So we're going to come in from a very nice point of perspective. We're going to be friendly and outgoing, and we're going to listen very well. That's going to be a big part of our job. So we're going to submit our offer, and the seller is going to respond in one of three ways, right? They're going to either counter the offer, or if there's more than one offer, we may be part of a multiple counter offer. And depending on what state you're in, depends on how that rolls. They're going to either accept the offer, and that's like, yay, we're very excited about that, celebration time, or they're going to completely reject the offer. And why could someone completely reject an offer? The offer was too low, the conditions were not satisfactory, or maybe one of the things we have to be sure we do is read the instructions in the MLS as well. Is it saying that the client wants a post possession, or a close date's important, or earnest? Is there something in there that would cause a client to reject? Ideally, I've heard that we are not a good generation of negotiators, so people tend not to want to go back and forth too much, but get really comfortable with it. It's okay. I've had 10 counteroffers in the past, as much as that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but hey, it is what it is. And we just move forward and do what our clients need us to do. So any thoughts so far on the offer process? I know this is kind of early for any ahas. I don't think I've said anything all that exciting yet. So, okay, nothing so far. All right, so let's talk about how to prepare the offer. Now, when you get the opportunity to do it, like read the MLS instructions, right? If I'm not sure, every MLS is different. Sometimes there's documents within the MLS that are super important for you to read. The private remarks that are in the MLS, any instruction, look for things like, is there solar? Is there septic systems? Water's like what type of water? Is it private water, well water? Where you live, it could be something completely different. Make sure you know all those pieces and have that with you when you're going to write the offer, because that's going to probably dictate the addendums you put in there, the wording you're going to use. Is a solar lease? Ask the agent questions. Be sure you're really clear on what this property has that you're going to need to address in your contract, right? Making sure it's still available is the first part. Some agents don't like to put a property to pending or under contract, accepting backups, however you guys have it listed, until someone opens escrow. Here in our state, we have the ability to wait 3 days technically before we have to switch it over to a pending status of some kind. So you may want to just double check on that, because nothing's more heartbreaking than you having to tell your clients, they get this whole offer excited and ready, and you find out it went under contract 2 days ago. So make sure you have a conversation with the agent. Again, you're trying to do that collaborative thing, right? You're trying to create that rapport, because that's going to be super important. That's where step 2 is. That listing agent is the gatekeeper to your client's dreams in a way, right? Especially if they really, really want this house. So kind of check and see, can this agent, like, what type of personality do they have? Are they more the analytical one? Are they more the super friendly, gregarious one? Hey, if you can get an agent to talk, I recommend it, because they may share something with you that will benefit your client. So that would be great. Inquire about the activity on the property. I don't always know if agents are always forthcoming about this information, because if they say something like, oh, we've had no showings in 10 days, that can give you as a buyer's agent an opportunity to maybe go lower on an offer than you would have thought to. So not that I don't trust them, but I know as a seller's agent, I probably wouldn't share a ton of that information. And just remember that too. Some stuff is protected information that as a listing agent, they can't share with you, or they shouldn't, or they do or not, but um, you may not have some of these questions answered. So you're going to have to go with what you think is best at the time. Of course, they do have to disclose, or I guess in every state you have to disclose, if there are any other current offers. They may not have to share with you what those offers are, how much they are, what the terms are, but they should be telling you if they do have anything currently. And if they did have any in the past that fell through, and depending on if your state has a disclosure law, they should be telling you about if they fell through for a particular reason. Like, yeah, the foundation was completely terrible. It's going to have to be redone by the next buyer. That's going to be important. But I think certain states you don't have to disclose things. So just know that too, because you may not be able to get particular information from a listing agent. Sometimes if it's okay, or if it's okay for them to share why a seller is selling. Are they moving somewhere else? Is their family grown? Things you may not hear about is if they're going through a divorce, or if there's some personal reasons they don't want to share. And that may be a reason they don't sell. Now, I don't want to get too morbid or down some weird lane, but in certain states, you don't have to disclose that something happened inside the property. Maybe there's something that went on within a property. This is why I always suggest too, the clients, if they like something a lot, hey, go talk to the neighbors. If you see a neighbor outside watering their lawn, or picking some flowers, go talk to them and ask them how much have they liked living in this block. Do they you're thinking about making an offer on this house over here? What's the neighborhood like, and see if you can get some information. I've had clients who they've talked to the neighbors and found out that most everybody's trying to move because of one particular neighbor and their antics. They play music until midnight, 1 a.m., and they can't seem to get them to stop. So it's always good for your client to have the conversation with with neighbors if possible. Ask agents how they want to receive the offer. There's an email is usually the most common one, but you may see things like send it to this website. If you have like an offer pad or open door in your if you're working in your area, then they have websites you have to submit to. So find out the best way to have an offer sent to somebody, because you don't want an offer to be missed because you didn't follow the instructions again on the MLS. I also hope at this point you've already had your client pre-approved, and so the lender has some kind of pre-approval letter for you. Not sure if it's part of your contract or not, but a great way to show how strong a buyer is to show that agent how they have already spoken to a lender, pre-approved, the earnest money they want to put down, and all those strong points that a good buyer would have. And so it's really important to get that letter. We have forms here. They're Arizona specific. You may have the same. It may just be a letter from a bank that they care about. There's lots of different ways that it can be delivered and what format it comes in. So just make sure you have that handy, because that is a really great tool to give to the listing agent to show how strong your buyer is. The tax records are important too, because when you have to write up the offer, you're going to have to include the correct seller on there, right? Or who the seller is. And it's okay if, like, for some reason it doesn't show correctly, or it's a trust, maybe you didn't get the name 100% right. That can always be corrected in an addendum. But you can also ask the listing agent, hey, I'm looking at the tax records. It says that so-and-so is the seller. Is that how you want me to address it on the offer? Again, the fewer times you have to go back and forth and it leaves the offer open without coming to a meeting of the minds, the closer you can get to this fully executed document, the better. I also like to look at past MLSs. What's the history of this house? When did it last sell? Has the listing been canceled? Can you tell anything from that? Can you gather any information? Does it look like it canceled right after an inspection period potentially? Did something change? Does it look like something got updated? History is good. And also you're checking for misinformation. Potentially an agent may have accidentally put something in their listing incorrectly, and maybe the prior two listings had it right. So that's a good opportunity to check and verify whatever you can upfront. Just leaves a lot less to have to deal with on the other end. Doing a comparative market analysis or a CMA, there's tons of tools that you can use to do it. There's Realtor Property Resource, there's Cloud CMA, there's lots of them. Or just a good old fashioned run some comps using your MLS. I know there are some states that they don't disclose the sales price of a property. So I know that makes it a little bit harder. However, however you can glean data would be great to help you figure out the best price, because just because it's listed for a certain price doesn't necessarily mean that is the actual price of the property you should make. That's the offer you should make. Sometimes some people will use that though as their foot in the door. They'll make an offer and go in with whatever the seller wants and then renegotiates during the process. I get that, especially in a market that's very pro seller. It's sometimes harder to do that because people kind of stop trusting you to keep doing it that way if that's your constant way to list or help people buy houses. So just know that you want to be as fair as possible, of course, with the fiduciary responsibility to your clients. And then again, disclosure statements that may or may not be, you may not be allowed to disclose or have to disclose in your states. You may have like for us, we have to deliver it within a certain amount of time after a contract is accepted. A lot of times agents will ask us for it up front. Totally, agents call when it comes to asking their clients, hey, is it okay if I share this information ahead of time? But whatever you can find, again, to make a better deal up front. Any questions so far about these particular things and getting an offer ready to write? Like any other information, I'd love to even hear, your state, if there's something that we talked about that you say, oh, we do it here and this is how we do it differently. I'd love to know that.
Here in Colorado, where you do it very similar, where you just check with your listing agent, make sure you've got all the information in there that you need. What's the best timeline for their client to try to make things match up and make it easy to work with. So it sounds like we're pretty similar. A lot of the information is disclosed in our MLS here on the Western Slope, but other than that, everything else it sounds like we're pretty much on the same track.
I feel like the West Coast states are so much different than the East Coast states. East Coast, there's a lot of attorneys involved. On the West Coast, we have a lot of title and escrow instead of attorneys. And so here in Arizona, as an agent, I'm actually an attorney for the contract. Our Constitution has given us that right to be an attorney for this particular situation. And like you said, like I like to ask the seller's agent, like, what's a winning offer look like for your client? I love when agents ask me, so what's the lowest price your client is going to take? Well, I'm probably not going to share that with you. So just go with your best gut feeling.
The answer to that is the asking price.
Exactly. You just remember what you think is right, and we'll go from there. But and remember that on your side as a listing agent too. I swear I've worked with some listing agents that I think they're working with my buyer too, because they just share so much. So you just got to be really careful. And I know this is a lot of information, but typically, when you're going through the process with your client, like you already have a lot of these ideas. Maybe you're showing the property, you've already talked to the agent. Or one of the things that I love is I already know a lot of agents that work the same areas I do. And when you create those friendships and you create those relationships, it does make life so much simpler because they know you as an agent who fulfills their promises. And that promise is, I'm bringing you a qualified buyer with an offer that we believe to be a fair offer, and we want to close at the time we say we're going to close, right? So when you get a chance, network with agents in your area, because especially the ones that are doing the most business. Because if they know you, and when we got into those seller markets that were crazy, having those relationships got my offer looked at more often than other agents probably. If we didn't win it, that wasn't on, that was just, we couldn't compete, but at least we got the opportunity to compete. So if you get a chance, network with network with other agents. I think it's a really great idea because you never know when a market's going to change or shift or do anything. Okay, more ahas. Anybody have ahas? Something you didn't know about, something you were really surprised to hear? It's okay if you don't have any. Okay, we'll continue. All right, so let's write the offer, right? Um, I'm assuming most of you have software, right? Like Zip Forms or a SkySlope or something like that. Um, I don't really know many people who write out the offers anymore, which is kind of great because when I first started and we were handwriting offers, not everybody has really great handwriting. So it's quite nice to have people who, you have everything online now. So the things we're going to figure out, the price and the terms. What is the price your clients want to pay? And again, depending on the market, is it a buyer market or a seller's market? Are you going to be at list price? Are you going to be over list price? Can you go under price and you have some room for negotiation? Right? Those are all going to be super important. Earnest money is going to be important. When do you want to close? Certain states there's like windows of closing, or it's not so much an exact date, and certain states have exact dates. Like that is the day we're closing. I may say sign docs a week ahead of time, but I'm not closing until this date, and once it records, that's when I get the keys. Um, One thing you have to be careful of too, when you're submitting an offer, and I know people love this, but it's a big giant foul. Do not submit what we call love letters to the other agent. I have gotten pictures of the people buying the home. The, I mean, it broke like just about every fair housing law possible, right? You've got to be really careful. You don't want the liability of forward. So I never forward those. If I receive it, I never even tell my client about it. I just basically trash that and I never forward it to the client. All they will have is their information that's on the contract and that's it. So just remember, like, as much as we think that it's going to be great to send this information because we want the seller to fall in love with our clients, just remember that's not always the way it works out and it could potentially be a big fair housing issue. So no love letters. If you are on the listing side and you get one, don't forward it to your client. Seller disclosures, did you get them ahead of time? If you did, fantastic. I know that's not always a luxury. Like I said, some states, I think it's New York, you don't have to disclose anything. So that may not be something you have the ability to look at ahead of time. Um, Conveyances, is there something that goes with the property? Like, there are certain things that are maybe attached to the house that stay, but then there are certain things like sometimes, hot tubs outside that are above ground. That doesn't necessarily stay. So find out, is that because the last thing you want to do is tell your client, oh, look, you got this great hot tub. And no, that's personal property unless you write it in. There was one person I saw too in one deal that it had, what was it called? Oh, a kitchen island. The kitchen island looked very similar to the cabinetry. So the agent didn't question the fact that it was actually just a piece of furniture sitting in the middle of the island, in the middle of the kitchen. So when the people moved, the island was gone. So they were like, hey, what happened to the island? And it wasn't, one of those things like it's hard to ask on every single thing. Oh, is this attached? Is this attached? Is this attached? I get that. But if you have any thoughts or questions that it might not be something that stays with the property, definitely ask the listing agent because I have bought my fair share of things that, I didn't realize were not staying with the property because they weren't, it was more decorative than something else. So that's always fun. Earnest money. Where you live, maybe there's different, here it's typically 1%. Some other states are 2 or 3%. Um, excuse me, a price point matters. A lot of times the higher the price point, the more earnest money someone's going to put down. Um, so that's kind of important to know what's going to make your client look the strongest. And most of the time, when you're the earnest money, you know, there's a lot of opportunities for buyers to get their earnest money back, right? So if you can show a stronger desire for the property in earnest money that, is refundable upon certain contingencies in the contract, then maybe you do that, make it a little bit stronger offer. There's due diligence and inspection periods. In some states, they are combined as one. In other states, I know you have to buy your due diligence period. So there's like an extra fee. Sometimes there's extra earnest money put down. During that time, it's really important to get everything you need organized and understand, you know, how long is my inspection period? Is that enough time to get an inspector there? Are you running into a situation where you're in a location where inspectors are super busy, or it's harder to get, it's harder to get maybe a pest control inspection done, or something. During that time, if maybe you need to request a little bit extra time, or is it a complete seller's market and you want to shorten the time? But if you choose to do that, please be sure you check with everybody who's got to fulfill that contingency, that they can accommodate. During 2021 and 22, when it was tons of offers at one time. I mean, actually, for one client, I wrote 24 offers before we actually got a deal. That was that crazy. Uh, you know, I'm never going to give up an inspection period. I have literally had contracts that people have handed me the contract and signed off with the inspection period and said, I'm not doing it. And they never even had the house inspected. Don't ever do that. Always make sure you get a home inspection. Not worth, lose the deal if you have to. It's not in your client's best interest to not get it inspected. So if you're doing that, make sure that everyone's available, that you can get the things you need to get done, and make sure all the people are set up for success, right? So make sure that you're not failing your client by shortening a time frame that you cannot get the people you are recommending to accommodate that. Time for seller acceptance. Sometimes we'll see on our MLS that typically we do 48 hours. I'm sorry, 24 hours. In some markets, I'm going to ask for a lot less time than that, because I just want a response, and I kind of want to put the seller on, like, hey, like, I'm not sitting around waiting for you to go shop offers. I want an offer to my very wonderful offer. I want an acceptance of my very wonderful offer or something. So, what does that look like? Does it say in the listing, hey, sellers are out of the country, we need 48 hours to get a hold of them? What does that look like for the buyer? This is going to be, or the seller. And this is going to be one of the things when, like the previous conversation we were having, finding out from the client, from the seller, what terms and conditions would be satisfactory. Those are one of the things you want to find out. Financing terms. Now, again, depending on your state, you may have an opportunity to change your financing terms during a certain period of time. Like, we can do it during an inspection period. We can change our financing options. You got to be careful though, because like if you're going from, you said you were going in with conventional, then all of a sudden you switch to an FHA, there's differences between those two loans. FHA does their appraisal involves some inspections of some kind, right? They're checking on health, safety issues, and we can't always 100% say how the appraiser is going to interpret some of those laws and rules. So if you go in with a conventional deal and this house may have a challenge with the FHA, and the seller is like, hey, I'm not fixing anything here, and there's maybe bars on the windows. Like FHA, they won't allow bars on windows. So, who's going to take care of that if the seller is saying, I'm not doing that? And this would have to be done prior to close. So just make sure if you're whatever your financing terms are, they're going to fit with the property your client wants to purchase. And sometimes, like I said, that loan may make the difference. And if you're changing it, you may have to get the approval of the seller to do that. We talked a little bit about the buyer pre-approval letter. Those are always important. Don't send the love letter with it. It's just about the money, right? That's all people care about, just the money. And the closing date. Where is going to be a comfortable place where your lender? Now, this is why you talk to your lender ahead of time, right? Hey, it's a busy market right now. Is it possible to get this deal done in 17 days? Is it possible to get it done in 21? Do you definitely need 30? Is there a lot of stuff in the house? If there's a lot of stuff in the house, that buyer may not be able to get out of the house, or that seller may not be able to get out of the house in 20 days, right? So, and sometimes they don't always realize that too, right? Like they'll be like, oh yeah, we can totally be out. And then, you're sweating it because at your final walkthrough, there's still a lot of stuff in the property and you can't see how that's ever going to happen. So just make sure that you're matching the closing date with your client's needs and the seller. Home warranties are great, especially if you can get the seller to pay for them. They will cover a lot of different things. Sometimes they cover roofs, and a lot of times they'll cover air conditioning. You can get appliances covered. It's good for little stuff, especially if you've had a situation like I did. Client moved into their house. God bless this client. I swear, this one had a little gray cloud over his head every time. He moved in, and 3 days later, unfortunately, his microwave went out. And then, 5 days after that, we knew there was some challenges with the water heater, but the water heater went out. And so there's always things that you want to try and, if you can mitigate loss, a home warranty is a great way to do it. Repair limits, um, if you feel like there is something in the property that is that's going to be a challenge. Maybe you already know that it's going to need a new roof, or maybe you already know that it's got an original air conditioner and the house is like 22 years old. Kind of think of those things when you're writing the offer too. You don't want to assume everything's in bad shape, but it's a good negotiating tool. Again, it's going to be market specific as far as, if people are saying, I don't care if it's an old air conditioner, I'm going to buy this house no matter what because there's such little inventory. Well, then maybe that's just something, maybe your client doesn't buy a house with an older air conditioner. Just understand their budget. Um, Special clauses, there's a ton of clauses, and I'm sure your markets have all these interesting ones. We've got, 1031 exchanges, um, skipping the appraisal, right? Appraisal waivers. We have buyer contingencies. We have, I'm trying to think of what other clauses we've had that I've seen. Those are ones that we like will write in. But then, of course, you have your appraisal contingencies, your home inspection contingencies, your lending contingencies. Those are typically very common. And then any addendums that you have, is a homeowners association addendum? Is there a solar addendum? Is there a septic addendum? And there's a ton of other ones. And I would love to know for you, your state, like what do you guys have? Is there something that you have that's maybe unique to your state, or because Arizona, we don't have any natural disasters. So I'm assuming places like California, maybe, I don't know, is there like earthquake addendums or something? Because I'd be really interested in knowing that. So anything that you guys have that's a little different because of your geography or something else. Something to think about too, talking about disasters. Um, if you are writing an offer and there's something going on, like a wildfire, or because we have those here too, California, obviously, well, basically anywhere in the West Coast definitely have them. Your home insurance, and that's something else you have to think about doing here too. You have to start thinking about the insurance your client's going to get, right? If you are writing an offer around the time of something going on, depending on how long that thing may last, you may or may not be able to close the deal, right? So let's just say you have a cash buyer, it's a really simple buy, and you can close in a week. But if there's a wildfire raging, somewhere around your property, no insurance company is going to bind that deal at that time. So just kind of keep that in mind. They do a lot of these in commercial contracts. It's called what is it called? Force majeure, when like if you can't close because of a certain thing happening, like COVID was one of them, like people couldn't get to places. But we really, like in our residential contract, we don't have that. I'm advocating for one. I think that would kind of be important. I'm not sure if any state you live in has that type of thing where if there's something going on, it automatically delays the closing by a certain amount of time in order to get that issue resolved. Does anybody have that in a state, in one of their states, in their residential contracts? No.
Yeah. Christy, we actually in Minnesota, we have in our purchase agreement, there's an automatic 30-day extension if clear title can't be provided by the seller.
30 days, huh?
Yeah, so it's an automatic 30-day extension. Yeah.
Now, so what does your typical close time look like? Like, what's a typical close? Like, do you usually close? Like, is it usually a 30-day close for you, or is it usually a little longer?
Contracted close, 35, 45 days. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, that's almost doubling the time then by adding 30-day. That's pretty cool because I feel like, especially after COVID, I've been talking to Arizona Association of Realtors and just saying, like, I really feel like we should have this in here. Wildfires are kind of bad by us lately. So even, in the valley up north, we have a lot of forested properties up north. And it becomes very complicated because it's technically no one's fault, and it becomes a challenge. So I think it's a great idea that you have that in there because I feel like it takes the responsibility off of everybody. It's not that anyone did anything. So that's great. Well, thanks, Ken. I appreciate
Sure.
that. All right. Now, this is the most important thing, and I can't tell you I can't like stress enough how important this part is because too many times, and it's because we now have this amazing thing where we can get everybody's signatures electronically, right? Like that's the coolest thing ever. Totally get it. You don't have to run to someone's house and have them sign. It's fantastic. But what people tend to do is they send them the contract and say, hey, I sent it for your signature. Just click and it'll send it to me. If you have not reviewed the contract in depth more than twice with your clients, once when you first met with them, and now when you're going through them, you're doing a disservice because when they first heard it, it didn't have a lot of context. They didn't really completely understand it. Now they're in it, they're looking at it a little more clearly, they can relate it to the property. Please go over every single piece of that contract with your client. It's really important. I have like a highlighted copy of the contract that I keep when I'm going, most of the time we're doing it online or over the phone. I keep a highlighted section next to me, highlight so that when I'm going over it with them, I remember all the important pieces, the close date, how much earnest money, down payment money, the lending information, who's paying for what? Are we asking for contingencies? Are we asking for closing costs? Are we asking, what are we asking for? Making sure they understand. And I try and tell them, like, it's going to feel like a fire hose of information right now, but I want you to at least hear what I have to tell you. If you have any questions, let me know, but I'm going to give you the highlights. And there's some things in this contract that I've never even had to deal with in the 22 years I've been a real estate agent. But at the end, I'll just kind of share a little bit about what those things are, just so you're aware. But these are the most important things you have to know right now. Ask pointed questions, stop, ask them about like each page or each section, especially the important sections. Do you understand about the inspection period, what you get to do here, when you can cancel the contract and when you can't, when you get your earnest money back, when the closing date is, what does that mean? Does it mean we actually close on that date? When are you supposed to have the funds by? Like, when do you send your money into the title company? When do you get earnest money? How much time do you have between the contract and when earnest money gets submitted? How much time, like, oh, this is another big one that's come up lately. All these like online banks, the ones that are like Green or Dot or whatever, you can't get the money out of there in one swoop. Like if you're thinking that's where you're getting your down payment from, they're not doing it. They're not sending you the money. I had to actually put my client's down payment down for them because that bank, she could only get in $500 increments per day. She had to pay me back $11,000 over a very long period of time. So if you don't want to put out that kind of money for your client because you don't want them to lose the house and they're going to lose their earnest money, then make sure that the lender will also ask these questions, but it's one of these good things. Like I always like to have a list of questions I typically ask. And that's one, like your earnest money or your deposit, will it be coming from like a bank that's online, or can you go access the bank? Can you go to the place? I have clients right now, they just found out they have a bank in Alaska. They just found out this is the only place they can go get the money is out of this bank in Alaska. They had to go to Alaska to get their money and put it in another account. So just having that information ahead of time will save you a lot of anxiety. Another thing, it's a little bit weird, but if your client is, if they are, their down payments, most likely depending on the lender, if it's not coming directly from them, it has to be sourced and you have to be careful. So this whole situation where I lent them the money, it had to be approved by the lender because of the complication, right? And the investor was okay with it. So like some people, you'll see there's like gifting options. That all has to be documented. It can't just be given to the client and like, oh, cool, well, I got this gift. No, the lender has to source everything. Money laundering, fraud, all that is major. So there's a lot of these rules in banking institutions that make it very important. You source you source the fund. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you're speaking to them not in the terms that you are usually used to saying, right? Don't do acronyms. Don't say things like COE for close of escrow. Say the word. Also write those out in a contract. If you're going to include anything, make sure the words are fully spelled out. Don't do acronyms. Like we have our inspection notice is the buyer inspection notice seller response. We typically call it the BINSR. I don't say that to clients. When I'm talking to clients, I call it the inspection notice, right? So because they'll go, okay, and they'll have no idea what you're talking about, but still agree to you. And then something comes up, they go, I didn't know that's what you meant. I didn't know that was the close of escrow date. I would never have changed it if I knew that. So make sure that you are saying full words, using not the acronyms, just so clarity is going to be so important. I like this, avoid rookie agent mistakes. Now, I get that you're like, how do I know if it's a mistake or not? Totally understand. But I'll give you some examples. And I'd love to hear if, you've done a couple of deals, if you've had some. I can always tell an agent, and I do this also, when I am going to like help buy with a client or someone submits an offer, the listing agent or the buyer's agent, I am always going, our MLS allows us to see their production. So I go on and check, like, is this an agent that's done a lot of work and should know better? Or is this a newer agent that, there could be learning moments in here. So I don't know if your MLS allows you to do that or you have access to that data, or a lender does, but it's always helpful because, like, here's an example. I'm doing a deal with an agent, and she sent me her compensation form, and I'm like, oh, that's different. Like, no need to send me a compensation form. And then she asked me, our inspection period was 12 days. On the 8th day, she asked me if I was going, like, what I would possibly be asking for on the inspection report. No seasoned agent would do that. Everybody has a timeline, and an agent who is a professional knows that they have the full amount of time. Don't do those things where you're pushing an agent. Or the other thing for us, if you miss the inspection period, it's automatically, I'm taking the house as is. If I go tell you to submit something, I basically just messed up my client, because now I'm reminding them if they would have forgotten. So I'm curious, anybody have anything that either they've done, and hey, I'd love to hear if you've done it yourself, more power to you for sharing that information. But if you've done anything like rookie-ish, or have seen it happen, I'd love to hear it, because it helps us learn, right? Like, this is what risk management's about, in my opinion. So does anyone have anything interesting? Cool. Keep it in mind though, because I'm sure they'll come up. And you'll see it, and then you'll go, I wonder how long. And I remember when I was an agent, and I'd have people go, oh, are you new? And I'm like, how do I know that? Like, I thought I was just being so cool and regular. Apparently I wasn't that cool. I clearly did things that I don't know what they were. I can't remember. I thought I was doing the right things, but apparently not. Okay. More ahas. Okay. Anybody else have an aha yet? All right, great, because this is all good stuff, right? All right, let's talk about presenting the offer. Okay, so the upside is, as a buyer's agent, you have a little bit more flexibility if there's a mistake that you make, even though it may require you canceling your client's contract, which would totally suck. But just make sure you have everything included. If there's leased items that you have to account for, all the addenda you said you were sending, make sure those are all double checked. Nowadays we have to, I'm assuming you guys have the same things, like compensation addendums. Those are newer, making sure we have them in there. Now, the way you deliver it too is, personally, I like when every form is separate and it's labeled, right? Like residential contracts, pre-qualification form, a homeowners association addendum, because in our system, we have to put those documents in independently, right? Like, every form goes in its own little slot. If you send them all as one, if you don't have a transaction coordinator and you're doing it on your own, you've got to go separate all those documents out. So most agents like when each one comes over as an individual document, and maybe your transaction system does that, which is great. I know some people just like to scan things for some reason and just send everything all over. The easier you can make it for the other party and the more organized you look, the more professional you look, it just gives a better feel for that listing agent. They put more faith and trust in you. So it's always good to do your best making that presentation, right? That first impression, starts here too. order the documents logically. I love that comment because I like when it's like purchase contracts, pre-qualification or addendums, pre-qualification forms, supplementary documents. It makes sense, right? There's an order to it. When you have to like go over here and then you got to look over here and you can't, and if you don't have them labeled right, then like, okay, was that document XYZ F2345, right? So as an agent, as a listing agent, I'm gonna get super frustrated. I'm just gonna think you pay no attention to detail and like, I don't want the deal to go the rest of this way. And I know that sounds a little silly, but if you're in a market where that, people are competing, those little things may make the biggest difference. So be as accommodating as possible with order, clarity, all the right documentations. Make sure you read everything. Again, one last time in that MLS. Is there anything you missed? Is there a document that shares how you're supposed to submit an offer? And then when you send it over, I love doing email summaries. And the really cool thing now, you can upload that document to ChatGPT and say, write a summary for me. And it spits out a summary that you can copy and paste. Just double check it. But it comes out really nice. So I really like those because mine are usually a little bit on the boring side. They're very specific. My ADHD kicks in and I'm like totally bullet points and that's it. I don't do a lot of flowery, but sometimes that's not bad. If the other agent is into that, if you have an agent on the other side who maybe is a little bit more talkative and they're a little bit, lighter and their energy is a little bit different, then maybe that's what you want to send them. The more you can read the other agents, I promise you, the better it's going to be for you and your client. Call the listing agent. Sometimes there's opportunities where you can't, and I totally get that. The minimum is a text. I have gotten offers. I have one deal. I never spoke to that agent one time. She never called me, never returned a phone call, always texted, never spoke to her. And there are some companies that actually suggest that. Don't speak to anybody. You want everything in writing and documented. So don't talk to the other people. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that's losing a lot of the benefit we have as an agent, especially for nice agents. If you're an ass, then maybe just completely forget it and just definitely stick with the texting. But I just think that those conversations will mean a lot and you get a lot. Like I said, you can have that listing agent start talking like crazy and you may learn something that will be a benefit. Add all your documents to command and then consult with your buyer. Make sure that as soon as you get the signed listing back from your client or the signed offer back from your client, you send it over right away to the listing agent with your conversation, your summary, and then you tell your buyer, hey, sent the offer over with a summary. Just a reminder, we gave them till such and such time tomorrow or whatever day at 5 p.m. to respond. And as soon as I hear anything, I'll let you know. And then they're going to text you 20 times. Did you hear anything yet? Did you hear anything yet? Did you hear anything yet? It's okay. It's like kids in a car. So any questions about that, about presenting the offer? Oh, more ahas. Anybody have any thoughts on that one? No, you guys are pretty easy tonight, huh? All right. Okay. Receiving and responding to an offer. Now, you definitely want to make sure the offer is complete, right? Like, so this is now you, let's flip it, we're the seller's agent. So we're receiving this offer. It's lovely. It comes over in everything's different. Every file is well labeled. There's a logical order. It's beautiful. The agent has already called me 3 times. I already know him or her. They've been wonderful. And we're super excited. We take this offer, we read the summary, make sure it matches with what we received. Because, sometimes agents do that. They'll change things up and they may write what they thought they put and they didn't. Obviously, everything on the contract is what's real. Send a nice little message to her that, hey, thanks so much for the offer. We received it. I'm going to be presenting this to my sellers right away. And then for us here, I always send it right away to the client. Even if I don't have time to chat about it right now, I send it right away and just text them, hey, got an offer, just sent it to you. I haven't gone over everything yet and I'm in a meeting. I'll call you as soon as I look at it. And when as soon as I'm available, right? I like doing that for 2 reasons. One, if the seller is not happy about it, it gives them a little time to calm down by the time they speak to you. So they've kind of digested it a little bit if it's not exactly what they want. If it is what they want, fantastic, looks great. We kind of already know based on the summary usually, or if we get a quick second to look through it, but it kind of gives them a little bit of time to process. Then we want to call the buyer's agent after we're done, right? We want to talk to our clients, or talk to the buyer's agent, go through the offer again, just to make sure if there's anything that is simple, like maybe you would have been better off with a different closing date, right? Like maybe you see that could be something really simple. Hey, look, you put down this date. Is there going to be a challenge at all with this date? Because that would really work better with my client. Like, because this way, when you go back to your seller and they say, oh, we didn't want this date, no problem. Already spoke to the other agent. They are already fine with changing it. No big deal. Again, the more information you and the other agent can share, the better. Call the lender. Are there states, does someone have a state where you're not allowed to call the lender if you got an approval letter? Okay, because I think that's a big part of it. I always call the lender. And here's an example of one of the reasons too. Not obviously the lender probably wouldn't send you this pre-qualification form if they weren't good, but I'm here in Arizona this time of year on Pacific time. This lender was a VA lender who worked for a bank out of Florida. So they're 3 hours ahead of us. He had a 9 to 5, like his job was 9 to 5. He can only speak on a recorded line, so he had to be in the office if I wanted to talk to him, which meant any question or anything that came up had to be done by 2 p.m. If it wasn't done by 2 p.m. on a Friday, I would not get the opportunity to talk to him till the next Monday. So those kinds of things may be really important, right? Like, so understanding where is the lender, what's the relationship this lender has with the agent or the buyer, right? Like, is there a relationship at all? Is this someone that just got Googled online and they said they had the best rates? Are they able to give you the documents you need for your state? Our state has some very specific documents required for the contract. If the lender doesn't have them, then that could be a problem. I had a client who was coming here from Oregon. The lender refused to send, we have what we call a loan status update document that's due 10 days, within 10 days of the contract acceptance. And it's just a little bit more information, right? Like what's been ordered, like if the appraisal's been ordered, what things have been done, like kind of just like a checklist of items. And the lender basically just signs off on what they've done. The lender refused to give it to me. And if I didn't get this document to the listing agent, my client would potentially lose their earnest money because the lender wouldn't do it. And I was like, your client is going to lose their earnest money. At the time it was $5,000. But so you not doing this form is going to cost your client $5,000. Like, well, we see this form as a liability. I'm like, that's funny. I can't tell you how many deals as agents we've done over the past however long this form has been. And not one person has been, lender has been held liable to anything in there. I'm like, you either did it or you didn't do it. And I actually ended up having to have my client call their bank because this was their personal bank and basically tell them, if you don't send us this, we're cutting you loose and we're going with someone else. And then we're totally taking all of our money out of your bank account. So just make sure that when you're understand that the lender isn't necessarily about the pre-qualification or the information on the finances of your client. Are they out of state? Time differences? What type of loans they typically do? Like those things are going to be super important as well. And then the outline of documents is great. If you have the summary checklist, that's good. Now, if you're in a situation where you have multiple counter offers, right? You have multiple offers that you're going to possibly counter, or you're trying to figure out. There's great like spreadsheets that you can do that you can help break down each piece. Or again, you can give them to ChatGPT and say, tell me all the differences in this contract, in these 3 contracts, and come up with a way to share with your client which ones have what pieces. And then either you can multiple counteroffer all of them, with different things that, each one could give you better, that would make it a better deal for you. Or if there's one that stands out and shines, you could pick it. But if you have multiple offers, having a multiple offer sheet
Christy, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. That was weird. Everybody went away. I was like, I'm really
We're all here
not
waiting for you.
I'm like, I'm not that bad, I promise. Hold on, let me pull up our stuff again. Love technology. Give me one quick second. All right. Hope everyone's having a good evening so far. Oh, my stuff wants to be temperamental tonight, but okay. Okay, can you all see this now? We good? Cool. Okay, sorry about that. All righty. Oh, let's see. We got a couple chat things. Let's see. Oops, we lost her. Yeah, sorry about all that. Not sure what happened there. All righty. So as a seller, you have the same options, that you saw the buyer got before. It was you can counter the offer if you feel like there's terms that you want, and anything can be countered, right? Like some people will add in personal property. This is another challenge. As agents, like our job is to help with the home buying and selling process. And if you live in a place where there's maybe secondary homes where it comes with a lot of furniture, or there's personal things, or there's something else that somebody wants that's in there, that gets kind of complicated because if you put it in an offer, lenders don't usually like it. So you may have to do a separate bill of sale. If then comes with everything, well, does that mean like even those personal pictures of you and your grandma, or so it's really good to be very specific, especially if you're making an offer on a property where all the furniture and everything comes with it. Like maybe you're buying an investment like an Airbnb, because I like to take photos of things that may not come. So like, especially if it's like I'm buying the whole entire house of stuff. Okay, so this isn't coming, this isn't coming, this isn't coming. And just for clarity, so everyone has the 100%. So when you're reviewing the offer, if it's something that has a lot of personal property in it, as an agent, you may want to remove that because the lenders don't like when personal property is included, even if it says transferring, conveying over with zero monetary value. They still don't like it. So just know that if you're adding, other than like washer, dryer, appliances, hot tub, like those things are common. But if you're asking for like couches and artwork, like those are the types of things they don't want to see. So review the offer and make sure, because sellers usually, once they accept an offer, there's very few ways the seller can back out. I'd love to hear about in your state, but here, like basically something has had the catastrophic happen to your property with more than 10% of the property's value damaged for a seller to back out, or a breach of the buyer. But we give them 3 days to correct that. So I'd be curious, like, is there a big out for your sellers in your contract that allows the seller to change their mind after a certain period of time? Like, is there a 3-day right of rescission or anything like that? No? Okay. So then or you can accept the offer. Maybe it's a full price offer. They gave you everything you want and you're super happy, fantastic. You begin the contract process. If you reject the offer, I mean, it's rare to get it rejected right away unless your price is just like completely a lowball, right? Or something different. Like I'm getting a lot of subject to offers, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but that's when someone wants to take over the loan of your client. So it's subject to the buyer taking your client's loan, which is usually a problem because banks will call a loan due if they find out that you've done something like this. So that could be a challenge. So that may be a reason you reject an offer, right? Because it's a subject to. If you have, let's see what else. I'm trying to think of what other reason. Mostly it's price. Price or loan structure is really the big reason I see someone just completely reject something. Anyone else ever like see a reason that someone just completely rejects an offer without even countering in any way? No. Yeah, it's not very common to completely reject for most any other reason. All right.
I had
Okay.
this one
So
happen over the weekend, um,
yeah.
where it's in the private listing. It's a private listing. It's not going to go live till June. Someone came in and made an offer. We weren't going to show it, but my clients ended up letting them come. But they rejected it because they wanted 4% in closing cost credits, which here in the Chicagoland, it's a big seller's market, so rare if you're getting that. And then in the
So
price range, we're already the cheapest 4-bed, 2.5 bath in the area for reasons,
they didn't even
obviously it's
want
not
to,
as updated, but but
and
they
they
didn't
didn't
even
even
want to.
want to play with it, huh? They were just like, forget
No,
it.
no, no.
Oh,
They want to
Nicole,
wait for
okay,
it to go live and let people fight for it.
okay, hey,
Is their
that's fair.
thought.
Like that's, and that's a big reason for people. They just want to, they like the blood. So, okay, Nicole, I really want to hear that the specific buyer, did they just like totally hate the people?
Yeah, it was a commercial neighbor that actually had been trying to buy the property for years. Funny story though, they are the ones that bought the property. So,
How did they get it?
well, it was a older couple. They ended up listing it right after one of them passed away. Then the other one couldn't live alone. And then she had moved into housing. And so it was being sold by the family. And the family was like, hey, Ma, this is a good deal. Because it was almost full price,
Oh,
no contingencies, cash offer. So
so those age-old vendettas, the age-old vendetta. That's pretty funny.
for sure.
Uh,
It was kind
that's
of
good. I
funny though,
like that.
because the commercial property was a septic company and he had
Oh,
turned in the original offer was only contingent on the septic being compliant. And he knew full
oh,
well that it was not. So
oh, interesting. Well, it's funny now that
yeah,
you
it
mentioned
was
that
pretty funny.
there was a deal in our office. I don't do commercial, but it was with a friend of mine, and it was this was an office building. Half was owned by somebody else, and they put it up for sale. They didn't want him buying it, so maybe I can see that. I can see that. That's funny. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Um,
It was pretty funny.
yeah, that is funny. So I am curious though too. So no one else has any seller outs because ours is so like I chat to some of my clients all the time. Like as a seller, you really have very little opportunity to get out of this contract. So you really have to be happy with it. I mean, you can try and negotiate the out, but it's going to usually cost you something. So what is that going to look like? But I don't know of any residential contracts that have that unless it's like a new build or something like that. But other than that, I've never seen that before. Okay. Um, all right, no more ahas. All right, okay, good. We're just on time to start the next one. Any questions? Because we're going to move on to the next chapter, which is basically negotiating the offer. So any questions on the writing up the offer, any of that fun stuff so far? Okay. I like this. I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution and people are happy to be in a relationship with me. That's like an affirmation in my opinion, right? Like you're kind of just talking yourself into, especially if your client is asking you to submit something that you think is not so great. All right, the role play, we're gonna skip all these little things. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to just skip to the next set of slides here, so bear with me. All right. Okay, everybody can see this okay still? Does everybody see this Ignite session 18? Do you guys see that? Okay, thank you. All right. All right, just remember too, when calling people, this is something that Keller Williams goes next to make sure you know. Remember about the do not call list. Fines are super huge. So just always make sure you have the permission to call people that you're supposed to. Don't spam people. Be really careful when you are cold calling people because that's a problem. All right, so what we're going to go over today, we can see it right here. So let's get started. Negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It's an everyday part of life. I'd love to know, just throw in the chat, has anyone here read Never Split the Difference? It's awesome. It's by Chris Voss, and he is a former FBI hostage negotiator. Chance read it. Yeah, great book. Granted, we're not hostage negotiating during this deal, but it comes in very handy with the tools. He also had like a master class he did, and it's kind of great. Like some of these tools, the mirroring thing, like you repeat things or use the word fair. It's kind of brilliant. So highly recommend if you need to brush up on some of your negotiating skills. Again, when we look at our negotiation process, this win-win or no deal. Now, I understand some of our clients feel like if I don't get the best deal possible and I don't screw these people over, I don't feel like it's a win-win, right? So you have to know your clients a little bit too, because yes, we do all want the same things. We want to get a house, but you are going to have those clients who they don't feel good about themselves unless they feel like they have gotten the last word, they've done the best, and they're coming out on top. And these are just customers we either learn to work with or you can choose not to, which is, beautiful part of our careers. You can say, no, I prefer not to work with you. But I always love challenges. So I try and get them on my side and try and work out something that's usually in the best interest of everybody. But again, don't forget you have your fiduciary responsibility. So a couple of things. After an offer is presented, right, you can get your offer, it goes through very nicely, it's accepted, and then you close. And then there's also the whole entire, now I like how this is all linear because in real life, this could go a million different ways. This, just yesterday, I had a deal that we made an offer, there was a counter offer, then a counter offer, then my clients went actually lower than the first offer, then they just said, forget it, then they called the sell. I'm like, it can get all over the place. So it's not so linear and neat as this sometimes, and it's okay, just hang on and patience and whatever you need to do to calm yourself and relax, whatever that looks like before you make phone calls because a lot of agents react as if this was something personal against them. Another great book is The Four Agreements. One of them says, never take anything personally. Remember, this is you trying to get the best deal for your client. And what does that look like? You getting upset or really mad at the other agent doesn't do anybody any good. So if you are a person who, maybe like you are susceptible to a quick temper and you're kind of fiery and that's your personality, super cool, no problem. Just make sure that doesn't get your client into a position that they are not going to be able to get the house that they want because, that's a good way to lose your job. So, you put in an offer, either gets rejected or countered, you negotiate, accepted, rejected, countered. I mean, counters can be infinite. A lot of times when you get to like the second or third, agents want to do this verbal thing instead or send a quick text, which is fine. You can do that. Just know that if something's not in writing, that can present a challenge. The name of the book, the first one was called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And the second one I talked about was The Four Agreements. I like to call negotiating dancing because I feel like that just sounds prettier. So like I just say, hey, look, we're gonna dance. Let's dance. We may spin each other on the floor a few times. I may accidentally drop you. There's just lots of different ways that your client is going to feel about the negotiation process. your job is to make sure they're getting the best deal and helping them, if they don't like it, helping them through it. Or if they're the type of person who wants to negotiate down to the last dollar, that, this isn't the best time for that. Maybe there's a different time for us to negotiate other things later on. So try and control the situation as much as possible. I totally understand that, that's not always the easiest thing. All right. So who are you negotiating with? Well, your clients for one, right? Because sometimes your clients are asking for things, maybe they've never done a real estate deal before, and you just want to smack your head. You're like, no, that's what you want to ask for in there? Or that's okay. Well, now, of course, it's your obligation to figure out if there's a way to do what they're asking, but sometimes it just doesn't work. I actually had a client who asked me to put the dog in the contract, the seller's dog. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're not going to give up their dog. So we had to have the conversation about leaving the dog out. And you're also going to talk with the agent on the other side. That's going to be most of the negotiation, right? So you have your buyer, there's you, the seller's agent, and the seller. Now, we can't control how the seller's agent presents stuff to the seller. So if there's things you could put in writing that they could just forward on to the seller, that's always super helpful. If you can, especially if the seller's agent is a tad bit, you can tell like high strung themselves maybe, and they are taking things personally. Maybe there's a way you can have that conversation, like, oh, look, you know what? I feel like this offer's upset you in some way. Do you think this will upset your clients this way too? Have you already had this conversation with them about an offer that looks like this? And maybe like see how you can de-escalate and have them refocus that this isn't about them, it's about their seller. And sometimes you have to be a therapist as well as an agent. All right. So common things you're negotiating on, right? Price. That's typically the first thing. The cost, having the CMAs done, that's usually the biggest thing, right? Like if you have really good comps and you can show what you think a property is worth, then that really helps with picking up price. It may be hard, like if you're a more rural area or a more custom area, maybe it's really hard to get comp. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, you know what? I feel like based on houses that have sold in the area, this price doesn't seem unreasonable. But the best thing we could do is know that the appraisal is going to dictate exactly what the bank is willing to let you pay for the property. So if it's not us, we can go in with our best foot forward. But if we have to renegotiate because of the price, because the appraisal comes in at a different price, then we can do that. And we, like I said, some of your clients, they're going to want, they want blood. And it's hard to, if you're a person who kind of is more leans towards the, like, as long as we're both getting what we want, then I don't understand why you have to be this way. It's sometimes a harder sell for us. And I totally understand that because I'm more that person and someone who wants to like lowball and see where they can, like, if they want to, like every single thing has to be a win for them. Maybe also pull in someone else to help you with the property and the negotiations because those can be a challenge. But, if you feel I would hate for you to give up and not try and just see how it goes. And this is a great practice for you to learn to work with all different personality types. And then terms of the contract, right? Financial terms, timelines, personal property. What else? There's closing dates. Like there's all different things in a contract that you're going to be negotiating. So from basically the very beginning of putting the offer in until the day it closes, you're negotiating something. Any ahas? There's a lot of aha requests in here. Okay. Let's talk about the 3 P's of negotiating. Prepare, present, and position. Now, when you prepare, right, you have to know what your client's goal is. Here's the funny part. Sometimes the client doesn't even know what their goal is. You have to ask a lot of questions. And you have to understand, what do they really want? And sometimes the goal doesn't make sense necessarily. Like I had a client one time who had told me that they were going to be retiring in 2 years. But then they were looking at a house nowhere near where they wanted to retire based on like a commute time of something. I'm like, well, if you're telling me you want to live in this home for the next 15, 20 years, you're going to retire in 2. Why do you want to buy there? Why don't we buy where you live, where you want to go? And then for 2 years, you just do your commute. And for some reason, that was a big giant aha for them. They're like, oh, you're right, we could do that. So really, this is the perfect time you have to be like really hone your listening skills. Listen to what your clients are saying. Because again, sometimes they don't always know what it is. They kind of have ideas, but sometimes they have a hard time sharing them. Sometimes your clients are spouses who don't agree on what the goal should be. So you're trying to find that happy medium. The more you have that information up front, the better it will be putting in an offer or finding that property. So that's why getting your clients is super important. Spend as much time ahead. I know sometimes we get these clients from, out of state or something, and it's just harder to make those connections up front or before you go shopping with them. If you can, great. If you can't, like if there's ways to figure them out, like Facebook stalk them or find their social media, kind of see what are they posting about? What are their likes and dislikes? Go on their LinkedIn pages, whatever you can do to find out a little bit about what they're like and what their likes and interests are. That may help you get through if you don't have a lot of time to get to know them before putting in an offer. Think ahead, what's going to come up if we present this offer or we have this type of person and this is what they really want, but they're looking in areas that are not going to have those things. Like maybe they want acreage, but they heard all about this one neighborhood and you're like, well, there's no acreage in that neighborhood, right? Like make sure you're setting them up to not get overwhelmed and be ready for or setting their expectations, right? That's the second part. Next part. Make sure you're setting your expectations and your boundaries. I always joke with people. I'm like, hey, here's the deal. Like after 9 p.m., there's a good chance I'm not sure what I'm going to tell you. I'm get tired. I'm like an early morning person. But if it's something we really have to talk about, I'll definitely lock in and get you there. But if it's just regular questions that we can wait till the next day, that'd be great. Make sure you're setting up expectations and boundaries, and for both them and you, right? What's your best way to communicate? How do you like to be communicated with? What are your expectations? What have you seen that's happened in the past that sometimes you could be a challenge and you want to just kind of share that with them? Make sure you're informed of all the rules, everything coming up, especially if they're looking in neighborhoods. Like maybe there's a condo complex they like. Find out about that complex. Is there any HOA lawsuits going on? Are there assessments being formed? Like as much information as you can glean ahead of time, that's the prepared part, right? Obey the laws, of course, and know your documents inside and out. Practice role play. Find people to, with our team, I have the new agents work with a seasoned agent, and the seasoned agent is the buyer or the seller, and they're going to go through the process with the new agent so that they get a really good idea of what happens during a listing consultation, a buyer consultation, and then all the way up to writing the offer. Ask purposeful questions, right? When you're having these conversations with your clients, you can get an idea of how important something is to them. Is a backyard important? Is having tall ceilings important? Good schools, like what types of things are going to be really important for your client to have? And here's the other challenge. Clients will tell you what they want and what they like, but the house they end up with has none of those things. Like I always laugh. I had one client who they had to have a house that was feng shui. They ruled out a lot of houses because it didn't follow feng shui the way they wanted. We get to this one house, it was not feng shui at all, but she loved the countertops. And so that's the house they ended up buying. But because even though they say they want things, don't be afraid to open them up to something that you think may, like based on the stuff they're going through and what you've heard them say, worst case they can say is, no, I don't want to see that, or I don't like it. But when you show them something that wasn't even really on their radar, but they fall in love with it, that just makes you look like the better agent. So don't be afraid to broaden their horizons a little bit and just like test the waters. And just kind of see if you can offer them some insight into something that they're possibly looking into. All right, again, looking for that win-win, set clear expectations. Open-ended questions are great. Asking them like, is there anything I haven't talked to you about, or something that you wanted me to ask you, something that would be important for you to have in a property? Now, and I always tell them, now sometimes I can't control what the MLS allows me to share. So I may send you things that don't always match, but I will also go through things and make sure that I can find ones that best suit you. What's important about something, right? When they tell you something that they need to have, ask them, now, why is that important? And then let them explain to you, because maybe there's a plan B as well. They may think it's this, but it's really this. It's not so much that it's this piece, but what they really wanted was this thing over here. And I know that some of this comes from having experiences and knowing the areas. That's why it's really good if when you have downtime, do you guys have like realtor tours in your area or home tours? I highly recommend going on them, learn about your market. If you have the ability to tour communities in any way, maybe new builds and stuff, always recommend that. The more information you have, you'll know things and you can ask your clients things that may apply. The closed-ended questions, these are really important. Do you have to sell your house? If you don't have to sell your house, and you can do a non-contingent and we can sell your house after the fact, is that a possibility? Can because clients can recast loans. There's going to be a range. Is there an absolute top part that you want to spend? Is there an absolute minimum number of bedrooms? Do you have to have a pool? Do you have to? So find out what those I like to do a needs list and a wants list. What do you have to have in a home? And then ideally, what would be great if that home also had this other thing? So I like creating those two separate searches as well. And this way they can kind of look on their dream properties. Usually with the dream properties, I don't limit the pricing. I just kind of put it out there because, sometimes they'll go higher. It's amazing how people find money. So just saying. All right. I love this question for when you're negotiating, right? When you're trying to figure out what a client really wants, and you say things like, what would happen if this didn't happen? Or what would happen if you got this? You want to ask those questions because sometimes you find out alternate motivations for things, or you help them keep it in perspective, especially if you have that client who's very much into getting the price they want. Because maybe their spouse they're shopping with, or their significant other they're shopping with, or whoever may be on the opposite end of or purchasing with them or something. Maybe those two don't always align, but if you can get them on the same page. So what would happen if we didn't get this price for this house? Would that make you sad? Or would that change where you were in 10 years? Or would that make your children so trying to figure out where does that motivation lie and why is it important to you? Why is it important for you to get this house? Why is it important for you to be moving? Why is it important for you to be selling right now? Those things are super important. Again, motivation, drive, what's creating the desire for this? Because if you've got someone who's like, well, if I get the right price, then I'm totally happy to sell, but anything other than that, then I really don't want to participate. Okay, well then maybe right now is not the best time for you to sell. Some people just want to do this test the market thing. That's not fun at all. Because that's really hard for people to, as an agent, you're kind of floundering, right? Because normally those test the market people 5 to 10% above market. So, and you have to help people, and it's okay to say no, right? You have to help your clients understand, because it doesn't look good for you if you can't accomplish those dreams for them, right? And I'd rather walk away from a deal and not have it than be the one who keeps trying to tell them, sorry, your way just isn't working. I love these scenarios. There's also, it's a deck of cards that you can get. Now I'm drawing a blank on the name. Maybe one of you guys knows it. It's the ones where Keller Williams is like a sponsor, they sponsor this guy. Philip Jones, I think is his name. And it's a deck of cards that you can pull, and one card is like the scenario, and the other cards are ways you just kind of have to talk. So it helps you role play really well. Role play, like we talked about, have a team leader or a team member or someone else in your office who can help you role play, because the most anxiety provoking thing, and I was just talking to a new agent about this, is I'm afraid when I don't know the answer to a question. A lot of us don't know the answer to the question. Oh, Mallory, yeah, they're online. She's asking about the cards, and I I think the guy's name is Philip Jones. I have him downstairs. I'll have to look and see what it's called, but they're great. They're great for role playing. Uh, she was saying how her biggest fear is not knowing answers to questions. I've been in this business 22 years. I still don't know all the answers, and things change. It's okay. It's just at this point, I have the confidence to say, you know what, I really don't know that, but let me get the answer. I get when you're newer and you feel like you may say that often, that it feels a little disheartening, but it's okay. Like, you know, maybe for your first few deals, you're bringing someone along who's been involved in transactions, and they can help you. But asking a lot of questions is really good. That's a great way to just get answers and understand your client better. And this way you can also anticipate some of the questions they may ask. All right, presenting the offer. Now this is really important because like we talked about earlier, having that information about the listing, the seller, anything that you can glean from there is really great. The relationship is super important. The nonverbal cues, like a lot of agents will do that. Well, I can't say. That's not something I can share with you. Or if you ask them a question and they just kind of pause too long, or something changes, or you can kind of pick up on those things. Present the offer, and then don't keep asking them, am I going to get a response? If they miss the response time, yes, absolutely, just ask them. Say, hey, look, response time was a little while ago. Are you planning on sending anything over? Absolutely. Like, just that's okay. Until that time, do not bother them for the offer. We talked about listening for what's important to the other party, so making sure that you get the information you need about what the sellers may want. Being calm, don't get upset, don't take things personally. I had an agent that I worked with that every time I called him on something, like I would call him to ask him a question about something, he always had something else coming up. Oh, I have someone else who's submitting an offer. Oh, they want to sell this to somebody else, or they want to, like, I finally was like, David, I'm like, how is it that every time I ask you something, there's always somebody else in the wings waiting for it? I'm like, I kind of feel like you've used that tactic a long time with me because we've done several deals together, right? So just know where somebody is kind of like, that's the way they do business. And that also helps you with your client negotiate. And I kind of just don't believe them anymore. Focus on the customer's needs. That's super important. We just don't know what, sometimes the buyer or the seller, they know what they want to a point, but sometimes they can't articulate it. So again, when you're looking at them as well, understand their social cues, understand what they're telling you. Because when you're presenting this offer, you don't want to give away. Remember, you have a responsibility to be confidential to the client. So things that they share with you, things that your clients are telling you, the way they're acting, you don't necessarily want to share all that with a listing agent. Like, oh, my client took them forever to decide on this offer because they just never can't make a decision up. Or like, be careful saying those types of things, because you may, like, if I hear them, like, well, hell no, if they can't make a decision on the freaking price, then I'm not dealing with them during an inspection period. So be really careful about what you say about your client. Remember, stick to what's in the contract, that your clients are very excited to be making this offer, and that you look forward to hearing from the agent. If they have any questions, please call and ask. I'm here to help in any way. Our goal is for all of us to close this deal and be super happy at the end. Like, that's a simple way to talk to an agent. And give your offer the best chance. I know we can't control our clients, and we have to, at the end, we have to do what they ask, as long as it's legal and moral. But educate them as best as possible and tell them you want to set them up for success. And we go back to that other question. What happens if we don't get this offer? So when you're giving the offer, explain to the listing agent, like, my clients are super excited about making this offer. They thought long and hard about what would be fair to everybody, and we're really excited to present this to you. Now your position. So this is especially when there's some negotiating between, something not particularly liked by the listing agent. Start with what you do have in common, right? Like, oh, it's great that we at least can agree on the price and the earnest money, is the close date work for you? Okay, great. So the only thing that we really need to figure out is the home warranty. So if we come up with an answer for the home warranty, then you think we can move forward with this deal, right? So try and present it in a way that you are a team player, you want to, we're looking at all the things that we have in common, and we got this one little thing we have to figure out. One little thing. And what's going to make that better? What does your client want? How is that going to look to them? What does it look like? And then if you can figure out a way to make it work for your client, great, bring it back to them. Sometimes I get it, they're so far off, it's not going to work. That's okay. Not every deal is going to work out. We totally understand that. But we as agents don't want to be the ones to cause those problems. So find out the best way that, okay, so what does it look like for your seller? If we made what happen, would that work out for them? And then this way we take it back to our clients and ask them how they feel about it. If this is your client's dream home and they want it no matter what, well, then you're doing it. If they're hemming and hawing and like, oh, it's nice, but okay, well then, maybe we offer them this instead. If we have this, if we present this to them, do you think, would that make you feel okay? Like paying for this price or giving this much in earth money or doing this? Yeah, if we got it for that, we could do that. Great. And then, the no one to walk away is important too. And this is like one of the things I was doing yesterday, right? I was talking about this. We just kept going back and forth, and my clients were so stressed out about this deal, and they were actually getting into fights. I'm like, this house isn't really worth that. If like you all can't agree on this place, there's going to be something else that we can find. Right now, we were so far off from the buyer and the seller, and sometimes when you walk away, guess what happens? That other party goes, oh wait, hold on a minute. We can actually do that. We'll let's go again. Let's relook at this, right? So when you can just, if it's not working, I was trying to tell my clients, don't fit a square peg in a round hole. If it's not working, there'll be another property. This is not the end all be all unless it literally checks every box and you have to have it. Then just give them what they want. But if not, let's move on. That's okay. There's always going to be that next house, and I tell my clients every time too. When you get into that house and you close on it, you're going to say, you know what? There's a reason we didn't get that other one. This is the one we were meant to have. So, again, I totally encourage you to do scenarios, role play. That's a great way to get comfortable and confident. Any ahas? Anyways, about a book? Sorry, Colin gets in the chat. Before we get off, I can go run downstairs and get those cards, and I will show you and get you the name. They're kind of expensive, like $60 for a box of cards, but I would like to do, actually, one of the things I want to do too is like a mastermind with them, like kind of just, a bunch of agents get together and role play these cards. We can do it on Zoom too. So if anyone's ever interested, I think that's a fun idea. Oops, which way am I going here? Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm going the wrong direction. All right, negotiating tips. This is the most important. It's so funny that we even have to say this, but seriously, be professional. I've had agents like belittle me from the start or act like, okay, please don't start off with I've been in business for this long and therefore I'm a superior being. Right? Like we get those types of agents too. Don't be those people. Be very kind and courteous. Zig Ziglar, you get what you want by giving others what they want. It's beautiful. Just be kind, be generous, and understand, and generous with your kindness is what I mean, not your client's money. Understand what your final goal is to get your clients the property they want for the price they want and the terms they want. What that looks like throughout the process may change, but that's your goal, right? I have seen agents who don't want to include transaction coordinators in emails. Like, I don't have time to copy other people. Why? A good agent will delegate the things they prefer not to do. We're better, or our job is really the client, not the paperwork. So find a transaction coordinator and get them involved with your deals, but also be respectful of the other agents and the people in their team, their coordinators, whoever they may work with. Continually refer to your client's motivation when speaking with them. I'm always a little cautious about this one. Again, I don't want to oversell how much my clients want a place because I don't want a seller to feel that my clients will give them anything they want. So, don't share that much information with the listing agent, but when you're talking with your buyer or your seller, talk to them about why they're doing the thing when you get the offer, right? So make sure you're helping them stay in line with what the end result is. I've had clients get so stuck on these like tiny little details, and you're like, is this really going to make or break you at the end of the day? Your goal is to move into this bigger place or downsize or go spend more time with your family. In this $1 million deal, is this $2,000 going to make or break you? Or is this just an I want to be right situation? Which one is it? And help them, help them put that in perspective. Definitely listen more than you talk. Whatever you find out from the opposing party, share with your client. Make sure they know everything. You don't want someone to find out you knew something and did not share that with them. That can be a problem. And I love don't be attached to the outcome. That's just about anything in life, right? Do the best you can. You can't control someone else's behavior. If the appraisal comes in $100,000 less, but the seller is like, well, my house is worth so much more than this. Don't have your clients come up with extra $100,000 difference unless it's something they really feel comfortable and are completely okay to do. Everybody has to be able to walk away. It doesn't help for someone to get into something because usually there's that buyer's remorse a week after they move in. So, okay, there's lots of eval things here. Okay, any other ahas right now? Anything? Okay. So I'd love to take any questions. I know we've kind of finished the section about the negotiations. Anything you want me to go over again or talk about? I can go look at those cards real quick too. If you want me to go get those. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about? Share questions?
I'll share real quick.
Thank you.
So I was just thinking, for me, I like to drill down with my clients and make sure that they have a specific goal in mind, whether it's to move closer to their kids, retirement, downsize, but we focus on that one goal and we don't let timelines and we don't let prices get into the way of that. We want to make sure I keep them focused on what the reason they are selling that house in the first place was, or buying the house. So I think if we can narrow it down to a specific area, a specific goal, and keep the clients focused on that, it's definitely advantageous when you're trying to remind them when they start going in there second guessing and I'm not so sure I want to proceed, and the things that clients do. And I feel like if you can remind them this is the reason we were starting this journey in the first place, it keeps them on track.
So true. Yeah, just keep sharing with them and reminding them. And I think it also helps them, like, the more they say it, then they also share a little bit more and a little bit more. And it becomes, well, I want to move by my kids because, they kind of just give you more information. Like, oh, my parents weren't by me when we had our kids, so we just thought it'd be a great idea. And the more they can give you that and share the emotional side of it, it helps later on because then you can say, all right, that's fine. If you don't get this property because, if we're arguing over just a couple of few $1,000s, how would you feel if you didn't have that time to, see your grandkids every morning when they went to school? Because I know that was one of the things we wanted to do, was to see your grandkids every day before they head to school. Is this $2,000 worth giving up that experience? Does that make sense to you? Oh, no, I'd pay $10,000 more. Okay, then why are we arguing over two? Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's just go forward. So for some reason, sometimes it's just human instinct to want to fight harder and not give in because you feel that you're losing. But when you show your clients you're not losing something, you're getting something, then that usually, when you shift that mindset on them, it usually helps a lot. Anyone else? All right, hold on. I'm gonna get those cards. I'm gonna go tell you what they are.
Anyone want to bet on what the cards are?
Do we have a pool going?
I know the cards. I just don't know the name. My managing broker likes to play, likes to do it in the office with us. I can't remember the name to save my life. I know exactly what she's talking about.
Oh, Valencia got it. I know. I never remember the name of these different things and it's called exactly what to say. Maybe the branding should be a little different.
That's definitely
Well,
ironic.
I I know. I was like, damn, that's what it's called. So these are great because there's a video on it too, and it's funny. When I was thinking about doing these, I'm like, well, how do we like? I don't. There's no like teaching guide with these things, so I don't know if I have the answers right or not, but that's not how it works. So, oh, Haley, you use them in Grand Junction, as in your brokerage or okay. So
Yes, it's
it's in,
in our brokerage in our market center. So Grand Junction is the main market center for them, and they do practice that quite a bit down there.
oh cool, okay. All right. So these are great. So this is like the scenario. It's a past client, right? Or closing or seller lead. And then the scenario is we're not in a hurry. So maybe it's a past client that says we're not in a hurry. And it starts off with, I'm not sure if it's for you, but, and then you have to continue that scenario. So past client, not in a hurry. I'm not sure it's for you, but if you did find the exact right home, would that make you want to be a little bit more motivated to make the offer or sell the property or whatever? Because I know that the last time we went through this process, you fell in love with the house you currently live in, and this was been your place since you bought it. So these are great, especially if you're doing them with different levels of agents who've been, brand new to in the business. And I love the brand new agents too, because they'll come up with something. I think some of us agents who are seasoned are like a little stuck in our ways sometimes, and we don't see some newer stuff. And newer agents give us a lot to think about. Oh, there's a Quizlet too. That's kind of cool. I didn't know that. I'll have to look them up. But yeah, these are good. I like these. All right. Anything else from anybody? Negotiation is definitely it's an art. It takes some time, it takes practice. That's why I like the role play stuff. You know, it's okay if you get caught up or, um, you kind of get, especially the first ones when you want them to work out so bad. Just remember that when you're negotiating, you're not negotiating for your compensation. I think that's a big part of what agents do. Is they think they're negotiating for their compensation, and really they are negotiating for their client. Your compensation has nothing to do with this, right? Like that should not be your first priority. The first thing you're thinking about. Ruben, you got a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you could touch a little bit on that preliminary phone call that you make to the listing agent
Yeah.
before you submit the offer. Like, what are your go-tos?
Sure. So typically, if it's an agent I don't know, I'm just like, hey, Ruben, it's Christy Ellis with Keller Williams. How are you doing today? Get off mute and we're going to role play for a second. Ruben.
Good.
There
How
you
are
go. Okay.
you?
Oh, I'm doing well, thanks. Hey, I'm excited. I have an offer for you from my clients. We went to the house the other day. We had a lot of discussion about it. And yeah, I'm going to be sending that over to you in just a bit. Do you have, before we finalize everything, is there anything you want to share with me about closing time or anything that's super important to your client that I should make sure I have in this offer?
No, I mean, we can close whenever. They're just looking for highest price.
Highest price, awesome. No, I totally understand that. Absolutely. So I'm going to be sending this over to you. If you have any questions, I'm going to summarize the offer. Please feel free to reach out. And if you wouldn't mind, when you get it, just make sure if you can confirm you got it. I just want to make sure. I know text sometimes things end up in cyberspace somewhere. If you wouldn't mind just letting me know. And then I look forward to hopefully doing a deal with you. Would that work out? If you have anything from me that you want to know about or?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Cool, my pleasure. All right. I'm sending it now. If you have any questions, just give me a call.
Sounds good. Thank you. Look forward to it.
You're welcome. So you want to just try and have energy, be very professional. You know, they're going to have to deal with you this whole entire time. I have literally had agents be like, that other guy is a complete, and then fill in the expletive. I do not want to deal with that agent. I am not going through a whole deal with that agent. We're taking your client's offer. If you will just do this. Sure, my client will do that. Sounds great. So the
Thank you,
friendly you are,
appreciate
the nicer. Yeah, and then the other thing is, if you talk too much, you may slip and say something. So short and sweet and to the point. That's it.
All right.
All right, so Andrea has a question. New agent here on new builds. Can you negotiate price, builder built in, not for a client, it's done and now is done and for sale? Obviously set the price, is it negotiable? So yes, you know what, I always start with it depends. Sometimes new builders are cautious of price changes because they've already had people in the neighborhood who have built, and it may be less than something they've done. So they're usually cautious of price changes. I like to start with them. If I'm going to negotiate, I'm trying to like sometimes negotiate closing costs, interest rates, potentially throwing in appliances, upgrades to the property. Even if it's done, like, can you throw in window treatments? Can you do a landscape? Like something like that. I've typically had better luck with asking for things that they can add to the property instead of changing the price. Of course, you can always try the price, but I've had better luck with them giving me stuff and keeping the price the same because, like I said, it may, depending on where they are in the build out in the community, that price is going to dictate stuff, right? Either future closings or piss off other people who've already closed. So, but usually getting stuff is easier. Always ask if additional incentive. Yeah, exactly. Always ask. I mean, they're sometimes rude about it, but you should always ask. Any other questions?
One thing to remember about that also, like everything in real estate is negotiable, and don't take it personally. If you're negotiating for your clients to get them the best that you can for the best house for the lowest price that you can on the buyers, and for sellers, you want to get them the most money on their timeline. So don't be afraid to ask, like on a new build. Don't be afraid to ask for, you know, if they can go a little lower. It'll depend on the builder. Some might be rude, but you're trying to do the best you can for your clients. And that's, if you keep that in the forefront, you will be successful, and make sure that you're just keeping their interest at the top of mind so that you can at least have a place to start.
And Nicole, they can always counter with the price they want. Absolutely. They definitely
Yeah.
can.
They'll accept it,
Sometimes
say no,
and
or
you do
they'll.
have to, and you do have to be cautious sometimes. Like I've had clients who want to completely, you know, a price that's super low, and I like to keep discussions open, and you know, that whole rejected thing, sometimes it's hard to come back from that, right? So with keeping in mind of what your client's best interests are, sometimes we have to save them from themselves. You know, and it's having those conversations like, okay, so what if you were the seller and you were offered 40% less on your list price? What would you say to that, right? Like, what does that look like for you? How much do you really want this, you know? And Derek's right, know your market. What type of market are you in? Are new builds like flying off the shelves and there's a wait list? It's like, you know, but what Adam said, it's always what your client wants. So I just always, when it comes to pricing, being cautious of setting it up where the other agent won't even talk to you because they thought your offer was insulting.
And that does go back to exactly. I agree with you, Christy, on that. And Derek, knowing your market, like ours right now are selling at 98% of asking price on average. So I tell my buyers we don't want to go less than 10% because it will be offensive and they won't want to deal with us.
Right.
And it's just having that upfront conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can't control our clients all the time. Like we start off one way and they go a different way. And you know, you've done nothing wrong. It's just how can you still work in their best interest? I lost a deal offering 51K over asking. Does that just suck? I hate when that happens. 51K. Did the other guy come in at like 60K over? Yes, it does suck. Oops, sorry. I'm flipping the things that are reading my comments. Okay, so Tyra, in a recent transaction, I gave up 1% of my commission to give my buyers a new roof, inspection, objection resolution. Listing agent sellers were kind of insane with the price versus the condition, but it was my buyer's dream home, and now they have it and they're super happy. Wild things this year. Yeah, no, and however you decide to get where you are in a deal is your personal choice, right? Like it's okay. I'm always if the client is one who is grateful and kind and sweet, and I think we've all done that where you just know a buyer who has done so many of the right things, yet it always seems like something's just not going right for them. And definitely your own personal choice. Okay, yes, and you found them another home. Way to go, Derek. Those $51,000 over people. They had 10 offers and one came in over ours. Oh, that's painful. That was like 2021 for us. I was looking at stats here, and I was looking at this luxury market stat, and the highest overpay it was $138,000 over list price. I was like, oh wow, yeah, wow. Cool. Anything else? Well, it's been a lot of fun talking with you and chatting with you. And Adam, thanks so much for your insight, and Ruben, your conversations, and everybody who participated. Really appreciate it. It always makes time more fun and learning from each other. I love when others are on and can teach along, because all of us have such different experiences of being in so many different places. It's I think it's nothing but a benefit to be able to learn from each other, regardless of where our market is, because there's always going to be similarities. So thank you all. Appreciate you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out or ask anything. I am here. I'll put my contact information in the chat. So if you have anything that you thought about after the fact, you can always call or text me, and I can answer. So, well, thank you all.
Christy, don't
Appreciate it.
forget
Have a good one.
don't forget to throw up your survey.
I didn't know I had a survey.
I thought everyone had them. We'd love to fill one out for you.
No one gave me a survey to share,
Okay.
so I don't have that. But next time I probably will.
Perfect. We will we'll get a hold of Matt and just let him know.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's stop that. And oh, look, I gotta stop the recording now too. Okay. Oop.